Hello everybody, MegazardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And for today, this is something that's kind of been looming in the back of my mind for quite some time. And I felt like it was only a matter of time before I was going to sit down and just talk about this in one of my videos though. And yes, I'm referring to review scores in general. The reason why a lot of people either get super hyped up about them or get extremely mad whenever certain review sites give out their scores. And if it's something like below a 7, like we're starting getting around the 6 or 5 territories, people will flip their bananas up and be like, no, look here, man, you got it completely wrong. You're not a fan of the series. They'll say X amount of different things about it and just kind of completely go off and just yell out into the internet void as if like they're just an old man standing in front of a yard and just yelling out to the sky though. And man, oh man, it just got me to thinking, wonder, it's like, man, do people really care about review scores that much to the point where they get really mad about it? And obviously the big one that comes into mind is Mario and Luigi Brothership, as that game has came out a handful of weeks ago and stuff. I remember all the hubbub and stuff that was announced whenever IGN managed to give that game a score of a 5 out of 10. And man, people really lost their bananas up on that mess though. So in today's video, I just kind of want to give my overall 2 cents of what I think about review scores, the reason why you probably shouldn't necessarily lose your mind over review scores and always take things with a grain of salt, and truly at the end of the day, why you should, evaluate your own opinions based upon what you see and formulate your own conclusions for yourself though. So we might as well go ahead and jump up in this video. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Review scores, I feel like you always have to take those suckers with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, everybody that lives here on this planet Earth are humans at the end of the day, and everybody is going to have a different opinion versus what you're going to be able to personally value something else, whether it be a piece of media, an artwork, or anything else in between. Something as simple as a favorite flavor of ice cream and stuff. Cooking and cream is the best. Don't argue with me on that. But everybody has their own opinions at the very end of the day. And when it comes to review scores, typically we'll see an upcoming game come out, whether it be a Nintendo game, a Sony game, an Xbox game, Square Enix, Capcom, the list goes on and on and on. For the most part, people feel pretty good when review scores give games a 10 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, or 8 out of 10, and for the most part, 7 out of 10. But it always feels like anytime the score happens to get lower than that, a 6, a 5, or anything lower than that, either the reviewer has lost their gosh dang mind and they don't know anything about gaming, or the game truly is that bad. And most of the time it's the former versus the latter up on these given situations. And then, for example, when we look at a review score from like IGN that happened to give it a 5 out of 10, you know what, let's just go ahead and just read a little segment out of their little blurb and see why they kind of were feeling a 5 out of 10 on this game. If you've been living under a rock for the last year and you're craving a Mario RPG, then I got good news and bad news. The good news is that Nintendo has put out 3 of them in the past 12 months, including fantastic remakes of Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. The bad news is that Mario and Luigi Brothership, the only fully original adventure from this plumber role-playing renaissance, is easily the worst of the bunch and an incredibly frustrating return for a series I hold dear. Apart from its action-packed, turn-based battles, it fails in almost every way to recapture the magic of the best Mario and Luigi games, while also clinging to their bad habits like ridiculously chatting dialogue, overbearing hand-holding, and boring runtime padding fetch quests, coupled with the shockingly bad performance issues that distract at nearly every turn, and a nearly 10-year wait for a brand new Mario Luigi game hardly felt worth it by the time the credits roll. So having the Mario Brothers sail a giant island ship hybrid to uncover and explore new islands is a great idea on paper, But in practice, navigation boils down to a pretty unspectacular ocean map where you pick the next destination you want to sail to and wait as you inch your way over there, and the results are ultimately meaningless. I never felt any sense of discovery remotely approaching that of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, or even the small ocean segment of Paper Mario and the Origami King. I felt like a kid in the backseat of a road trip, just wondering if we're there yet. And that's all I'm gonna read from this one review right here though, but like, oh shoot, like they just were not vibing with this game whatsoever. And that's perfectly okay. Now you might be able to agree to disagree on it. You might get a little bit upset over the stuff that I just read from that one IGN reviewer. But however, the other thing you got to keep in mind with a lot of different review scores out there from all these different companies or websites or YouTube channels, etc. These are all people, especially within like IGN, for example, that work for a big old corporation, big old business. And this is one person out of all the different employees that they might have working underneath that one umbrella though. Because granted, if you get this game code review to somebody else, that game could have easily not been rated as a 5 out of 10. It could easily have been moved up to a 7 or maybe an 8 out of 10 or something like that. And that's something you always have to kind of keep in mind. And I say in terms of reviewers and stuff, if you're really trying to go out there and trying to get a good idea or a good grasp of like exactly how other people might think of this game and seeing if it will line up with you, my strong recommendation to a lot of y'all out there is to pick a YouTuber, not necessarily YouTuber or maybe someone that runs a website, and not necessarily like a big IGN that had like a lot of different people with it. Like for example, I'll just say one example from me, Derek Bittner, who literally works within Good Vibes Gaming. A lot of his opinions in terms of RPG related stuff kind of line up pretty well with me. I know him based upon some of the comments and stuff that he happens to say up on Twitter and stuff. I've seen his videos and stuff, and by the time I gone through and played through a game and go back and look at one of his reviews up on the game, I can feel pretty close and pretty similar on some wavelengths. And there was one time I bought a game that he didn't necessarily feel like he was a fan of though, and lo and behold, I wasn't necessarily a fan of either though. So you gotta pick your certain people that you resonate well with, whether it be like an RPG series, an action series, it could be a visual novel series, whatever the game series happens to be. Find your niche of a reviewer that happens to have the same kind of mindsets in mind and base what they say with what you personally would love to see and experience within this game. And then obviously go through, look at Nintendo Directs, Sony State of Plays, Inside Xbox, whatever, or if Capcom happens to do it on presentation, Square Enix, whatever, wherever those trailers are, look at them, see other people's just raw gameplay footage. Don't even have to see or listen to other people's commentary, and literally be the judge of yourself. And I think the combination of what I just said a moment ago with you being the judge of yourself, that's literally what you have to do and take in mind with all of these different reviews and stuff like that. And just because a game can be ranked anywhere from the scale of 1 to 10, I think we should probably see more games. Obviously, you probably want maybe still stay away from the 1, 2s, and 3s, because unless the game rightfully deserves a 1, 2, or 3, because there's like major flaws that kind of almost make it unplayable at some points. But outside of that, the 4, 5, 6, 7 range should probably be used a lot more in gaming reviews than versus just having the old chummy 8, 9, 10s and some 7s here and there though, because I feel like we always see that quite a bit though. If you have a whole spectrum, go ahead and use the whole thing though. But at least with me personally, when I look at other people's reviews, if I'm kind of being the one that's leaning on the fence, I always would usually look at people's reviews and not really care so much about the numbers associated with them. I like to hear everything that a reviewer happens to say about a game first and base my opinions on that, not solely by a number, because I feel like sometimes you see that number of a 6 or 7 and instantly you kind of think, oh, this is kind of a bad game, versus, hey, that's actually, it's above average. It's technically, in the number percentage, it's a passing game or whatever though. So I feel like more people need to listen to the words and stuff versus just scrolling all the way down to the end of the website or scrolling to the end of the video and just seeing the number and basing all your, decisions and stuff on that. Because I feel like too many people out there probably do that and not actually listen to the words that are actually coming from these game reviewers. And even if you look back in some of my other past reviews and stuff for certain games and certain series, like for example, I reviewed Fire Emblem Engage, I think, what was it, last year or something like that. I don't really ever like throwing out numbers, and I'd rather you just listen to every word I happen to say about a game and let you be the judge of how I would say a game would be if you were to kind of put it in a number category in your own words. But I'm not going to put a number category for me personally, though. That's the reason why I felt so kind of mixed or something like that when I talk about games in a review aspect, though. I just like throwing my thoughts out there, but I'm never going to associate a number with it, though. But yeah, that's just something I feel like more people need to go back and reflect upon when looking at review scores. At the end of the day, you are going to be quite drastically different from Johnny down the street, or Timmy over there across the way, or Tamika or something that lives, all the way over in the next state over. Like, literally, you got to be the judge of your own perception of games. Because if you ain't, and you're just so kind of wishy-washy and just going back and forth and stuff like that, no wonder you're so mad over there seeing IGN give Brothership a 5 out of 10 on there. Because some things, even in that review, I personally agree with, but if I were to rank it on a number scale, maybe I wouldn't necessarily agree with the 5 out of 10, but there are some elements in that review, such as the load times and stuff, which I was like, man, I wasn't necessarily a fan of that. And it did take a while for you to be able to learn the brothers move. It took like 3 hours before you can get that unlocked, though. So there is a little bit of slow pacing, and the loading almost kills it for me, especially when you're trying to get into battles and stuff. So, even me going through and playing through this game, as good as it is in terms of like the visuals and stuff like that during certain points of the game, it does get some knocks here and there in terms of like the overall vibe check that I'm getting from Mario and Luigi Brothership, though. So hopefully, if you learn anything out of this little bit of a rant, a little bit of a discussion, open discussion that you heard from me, is be the judge of your own self in terms of when it comes down to your opinions for upcoming games within review scores and stuff. Overall, it's there to help you. Don't let it be a hindrance, and for sure, don't let it make you pause arguments online and have, debates with people like that. Like, that's just so childish. Like, some people just really need to grow up, or at least you got too much time, too much free time for your own good, and you need to kind of check some things before you wreck yourself. That's all I gotta say. That's a whole nother, discussion for another day. But I'm gonna leave it at. So you gotta let me know down in the comment section down below, what all do you think about everything I happen to say in this one video? Like, are you one of those people out there that really love to see review scores and see the way how people react? Or have you taken some of the things I happen to mention and take to heart in terms of, hey, you don't let anybody else's opinions really influence which way you kind of lean on? You'll hear some people out, but at the end of the day, you're the captain of your own ship, and you're either gonna ride high up on the sails of the, on the high seas, or you're just gonna sink with the ship. You just gotta let me know in the comments below. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video, though. So if you really like this, make sure you're gonna hit that like button, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember, y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.